Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we'll discuss the paper titled A Novel Prefabricated Grid for Guided Endodontic Microsurgery. And the premise of this paper is that it may be difficult to locate the desired entry point for osteotomy in cases when the buccal cortical plate is intact and or there is a close proximity to adjacent roots. And recently the use of CBCT in conjunction with an oral scan can be used to fabricate 3D printed templates for the osteotomy site over the offending root apex. However, with the many benefits of 3D printed surgical guides comes the issue of needing sophisticated equipment and expertise to run these equipment, such as the printers and the scanners and all that, and also using the software to plan such procedure. And in this study, the authors are proposing a different approach where a prefabricated grid is used in the pre-operative CBCT. And as shows in the diagram, figure 1, it's a metallic type of grid affixed to the bite wing tab that the patient can bite on with material, bite registration material, in order to have a reproducible positioning system. And this is used with the preoperative CBCT and utilized to locate the point of entry. This technique has been used in the medical field as an aid to localize entry points for interventional procedures such as biopsies and drainage. For the materials and methods, 42 roots were included from human cadavers, from maxilla and mandibles. Palatal roots were of upper molars were excluded. Roots were randomly assigned to the experimental group of the prefabricated grid, and the contralateral counterparts in the same jaw were assigned to the control group using a non-guided CBCT planning, conventional planning, using a K-file to plan the length of the root and estimate the entry point. And to test the accuracy of this technique, post-operative CBCT images were obtained and superimposed on the pre-operative CBCTs, and the deviation was measured in 3-dimensional fashion. Depending on the direction of the deviation, the drill path, when it reached a point or any point in the apical 3mm portion of the root, it was considered a success. And when the drill path deviated more than 3mm coronal to the apex or fell outside of the root, the attempt was considered a failure. And their results was quite good. The drilling with grids deviated at 0.66mm mean, with a standard deviation of 0.54 millimeters. So it's around half a millimeter deviation with a half milli standard deviation from the target point. And in contrast, drilling with the control group deviated around 1.92 millimeters with a standard deviation of 1 millimeter, which was statistically significant. And only 1 of 21 samples, accounting for 5% of the procedures with grid, failed, compared to 8 of 21 samples of the procedures with no grid. 38% of procedures with no grid failed. And in my opinion, this is a simple technique that requires no additional equipment and minimal cost and effort to help in achieving a much more predictable surgical procedure when indicated. I would say it's the poor man's surgical guide, or a surgical map, if you will. Thank you for listening.